It's time for the Creator Town Hall here on Studio Live today. Welcome aboard. In this episode, we've got a very special guest. So, once again, you don't have to sit there and watch me rant by myself because I'm bringing in someone who doesn't like to pissy pants about. So, I'm not going to pissy pants about. I'm going to bring in the one, the only, Jamie Mallender, all the way from the UK. What's going on, my friend?
Uh, well, I think it's all good here, Pete. Yeah, I've had my breakfast. I've got my coffee. The weather's decidedly okay for the UK. Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
all good.
Everything's coming up, Jamie. I love it. Very good stuff, mate. Thank you very much for making the time for come on here. Yeah, it is weird because it's the end of the day for me and it's the start. Well, it's the middle of the day for you now with all the time changes around the world. We'll be talking today about being a YouTube creator and being a YouTube music creator in particular. And for those that don't know you, mate, what's the elevator pitch? I ask folks to do this because I know many folks around this community know you and know who you are and what you do. But if someone's just tuning in and they're like, "Who's this bloke then? Who are you and what do you do here on the YouTubes, mate?"
Well, I guess really what I am is I'm a failed rock star. Um, and
Straight into it.
and
Love it.
the truth is that when lockdown happened, I thought, I've got to have something to do because, my life was gigging a whole lot, gigging 3 or 4 times a week, and teaching a lot of bass and guitar lessons and recording techniques and stuff, and of course, all of that just suddenly disappeared. And I'd always wanted to do YouTube. YouTube was because I've had a YouTube account for like about 10 years.
Since 2006, I think I saw today, mate. I was stalking you.
Right.
And I reckon you've had it for like longer than that, nearly 15 plus years, mate.
Yeah. And I did hardly anything with it. It was just there for if I demoed something for somebody, if they needed a video, I'd do a video. Or if I needed to host a video on my website or something, I could upload it to YouTube and copy and paste it into my website. But I'd always wanted to do YouTube and just never had the time. So lockdown happened and I thought, right, okay, now is the time to do YouTube because I've got nothing else to do musically. So it gave me something to focus on.
Love it.
And of course, being really, really into iOS music, I did a whole lot of stuff on that and some, guitar and bass demos and that sort of thing. And I really enjoy it. I love it. But of course, now lockdown has ended and I'm working a lot more again and trying to find the time to continue doing YouTube because in the long term, I would really like YouTube to be a big part of what I do.
Yeah. Very cool. And we'll be talking about that because this kind of came about, mate. And I hope you don't mind if we share a bit of your sort of inside talk here. But you made a post about YouTube and about the fact that, look, it's a bloody hard work. It's a slog. It's a challenge to actually make content. But then the making is kind of the easy part. It's the engaging and the promoting and the responding to comments and doing all the back end work and the thumbnails and the descriptions. So you were like, how am I doing? What can I do better? How do we work at this? So I thought that's what this show is all about, the Creator Town Hall. We're all about music and video and people creating that and creating their content and how they actually share that. So I thought it would be great to get you on to chat about your experience and then to kind of workshop some ideas and talk through some concepts as well. So I hope everyone's down for that as we continue on. Should we say good day to the folks who are kind enough to be here live, Jamie? We've got a bunch of folks here in the live.
Go on then.
Let's do it. Look, we've got to start with Jade Starr because Jade Starr is here in the house because she's a wonderful moderator of this channel. We've got Gregory O'Sullivan here. Everything is under control. Absolutely is. You weren't here for the pre-show where it took us about 10 minutes to work out the audio, but we're audio pros, so we got there. It's all good. Hello to I'm not gonna try that name. Jamie can try and pronounce that one if you like. But I know you know this bloke, Sion. Sion is here as well. I hope you're doing well, Sion. And who else have we got here? We've got Jamie Mallon. Oh, that's you. That's okay. We know.
That's me.
We know you're here. That's you. Dragon Lady Music Experience. G'day to you. Hello to Goran Larson. We've got Samantha Edge here from Adelaide. The Truth. about unicorns from sunny Glasgow. Is that, whenever anyone says sunny Glasgow, is that always a bit of a piss take that they're like, it's sunny in Glasgow? Has the sun come out in Glasgow this year yet?
Well, ever.
Or I can't get away with this because I'm not from the UK. So Jamie
Well,
can, he can, well, he can
the further north you go in the UK, the more dismal it is. So where I live is kind of, I'm like about halfway up the country, right? So we call it North of England because then there's Scotland above, and it tends to be somewhat dismal most of the time here, but Scotland is much more dreary.
So you're like Australia. We have New Zealand. We're just like, well, you know, if people say Australia's like at the arse end of the world, we're like, well, at least we're not New Zealand. People are just like, well, at least we're not Scotland. So, yeah. we're creating barriers and borders already here. Speaking of which, Joe Glenn over there in Canada, as well as Colin Stanton in Canada. Bloody Russ 8889 checking in. G'day to you, Russ. Hello to Martin Hammer, who is here as well. And I think we've covered everyone. So g'day. If you're here on the replay, by the way, don't worry. We love you just as much. And in fact, let's talk about that because I'm going to jump around here, Jamie. We're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. But you do on your channel, which by the way, you can subscribe to. It's linked down in the description there. Go and subscribe. You are at like 1.99 thousand subscribers. So if enough people subscribe to Jamie on the back of this show, you could be the 2,000th subscriber. Just saying. That's something pretty special. What was my point? Yeah, you do a lot of live and pre-recorded videos. What do you prefer to do and why? Or do you have a preference, live versus pre-recorded?
I don't really have a preference, no. I enjoy both because the creating of a video, of a nicely edited video and trying to keep everything concise. There's a real art to that, which I used to be terrible at, and I'm now getting reasonably okay at. I think I still have a lot of work to do, but I really enjoy the creation of that. But then the live experience is completely different, and I feel that I get to be much more myself. I'm much more relaxed, and the people that tune into that are the people who like that, the more laid back and the let's have a laugh and the pissy panting about and just the community, which is a huge part of this for me.
Yeah, totally. And you're right. It's about the folks that are right here. It's about that. You know, we've got Jade Starr here as one of the moderators, who's like, yeah, go subscribe to Jamie there. Hello to Maffy's Garden as well, who's dropped on in here. Yeah, it is. It's about that connection that you get with people, and I find the same sort of thing because I started out. I think most people start out with pre-recording and recording videos, and then move into the live stuff because it can be daunting. And it's interesting. Something you said there. You're more relaxed live. Some people might be shocked by that. Explain that a little bit if you can. How are you more relaxed when you have people watching you, and if you mess up, they're going to see it happening live versus you having the time to have 20 takes and pre-prepare everything you're going to say?
Well, it's weird that, isn't it? Because what I've noticed, I think what we all know about YouTube is that the audience have the attention span of particularly simple goldfishes, and so you're very aware when you're making a nicely edited video that you have to get everything in there as quickly as possible, no pissy panting about whatsoever. Right, but since cause I'm 50 now, and since I was a teenager, I've been on stage in front of people. You know, I've done that my whole life, and so I am used to being making mistakes in front of people and being totally exposed, being an entertainer, and that's really where I am most comfortable is on a stage. So live streaming is kind of like that. I can't see the audience, but I can feel that they're there, and I feel that great community warmth, even though they're just in a chat, like my chat down here. You know, it's a weird thing, but I love it.
It is. You're spot on. And it's weird for me because I'm someone who, I did perform live a long time ago, and I kind of had a different journey in that I spent 20 years in the corporate world, completely away from music, and only got back into it probably 6-7 years ago. So my live experience was nil. So I was I didn't put my face on camera for the first 6 months of actually creating videos because I didn't want to do that. I know a lot of folks out there, and I talk to a lot of people creating videos and creating music, that they want to hide behind. Like, they don't want to be themselves, and they want to hide behind a persona or a facade. And I think that's okay. And I think that, each to their own. And if that's what's going to work for you and going to give you confidence, then that's cool. But I think what's refreshing watching your video, watching Jamie TV, which we'll talk about in a moment. Jamie TV, put a bit of pressure on yourself. You're like, I'm a TV channel. I'm going out there strong. But Jamie TV is that it is. It's like you're a host. You just come on and you're like, well, hello there, folks. That's Jamie TV here. And it's so comfortable. And someone said something to me once, and I'm gonna say the same compliment to you, which is hanging out with you on your live stream is like I'm just in your front room having a cuppa, and we're just having a chat about music. And to me, that coming across that naturally live is what is the difference between you just going, okay, here is information, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. Yeah, you've got that in there, but I think personality and engagement and community is kind of number one. Do you agree with that? Is that sort of the vibe you're going for, that it's like you just having a chat with folks?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that for me, the musicians that I like, or channels that I like to watch, it's not just about the information or just about the music. It's also about the person, the personality, because as you well know, there are plenty of great performers who are absolutely stunning singers, technically amazing, and they just don't grab you, and it's a personality thing. There are plenty of big famous rock stars who aren't actually great singers, but we love them, right? It's about just opening up who you are and just being yourself, doing what you do, and then people will either like it or they won't like it. And if they don't like it, that's fine. They can go and watch Jade Starr.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because it's something that I talk about a lot, because I think there's a perception that I think some people come into this and come into creating going, why isn't everyone watching me? Why isn't everyone liking me? Why isn't everyone subscribing and watching my content? And it really comes down to the fact that not everyone's going to jam with the way that you put things across. And I know that there's people that tell me, they're like, get to the point, mate. Why did you spend 20 minutes when it could have been a 2-minute video? And you've probably had similar comments. And then you get the other folks going, this was too fast. I didn't understand anything you said. You jumped straight into it. So it is a challenge to kind of get that balance, which we'll talk about later in terms of the YouTube stuff. But yeah, it's such a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is.
All right. Well, I've got something. I'll say good day to a couple of other folks, and then there's something exciting that's just happened here. So we'll say good day to Gwei Gwei, joining us live from Brooklyn, where it is 7 a.m. So I hope you're having... Gwei, I hope you're having coffee and a bagel. Is that the New York breakfast? I think that's the official breakfast of New York, coffee and a bagel. But I hope you're doing well, my friend. Hello to Marcus Cannell as well, an amazing musician, speaking of musicians that we're talking about. And the exciting stuff here is that apparently you've just hit 2,000 subscribers, Jamie Mallender.
Have I really?
Now. I've just jumped over there. If we can confirm this. There you go. So can we get a round of applause?
Oh, wow.
Can we get some ovation here on the show, because that was pretty darn cool. Because I just said 1.99, and I'm like, I don't know if you're 10 away or 100 away or where you're at there, but there you go, 2,000 subscribers for Jamie Mallender. So congratulations, mate. That must be pretty chuffed with that. You got 1,000. I remember when you crossed over the 1,000 mark, and now boom, that second 1,000 comes on pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. The thing about YouTube is that first 1,000. And hitting that milestone of the amount of, how many hours is it you have to get monetized?
4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. Is it four? No, it's a lot. 4,000, I think, watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. Yeah,
within a 12-month period, which is rolling. Yeah, and that's really, really tough. Once you get past that, it's much easier.
It is, yeah. It's weird, and people say that to me because they're like, "Oh wow, it must be amazing that so many people subscribe." And I'm like, "Yeah," and it is. And I think sometimes you get numb to just looking at it. And look, we'll talk later because the numbers aren't everything, but the numbers give you a bit of an indicator. It is more about the community that you have out there and the people that are actually watching, which you've got a whole bunch of people here. The truth about unicorn. Should we just say it was the truth about unicorns? I liked the idea that they're your 2,000 subscriber. We'll go with that.
It's just a great handle, isn't it?
It is the truth. I love it. When you got some people, I mean, Glenn Clark is a great guy, and he's out of New Zealand, and he's a wonderful musician. I know him well. And there's nothing wrong with being Glenn Clark or Pete Johns or Jamie Mallender, although people can never spell your name right, I'm sure. But there's something about cool names like The Truth about unicorns. And I also love that it's The Truth and then space and then about unicorns. But I could probably go on about that for a while. Let's talk more about the whole YouTube thing. So look, I was going to ask you this, but you covered this in your elevator pitch, mate, about why YouTube. So you talked about the fact that we came into this whole C word situation, the inconvenience, as Jade Starr calls it, and like many folks, it ramped up your desire to kind of do more stuff online, and it really was the golden age. If 2008 was the golden age of YouTube, when everyone that got into YouTube back then did really well, because everyone sort of started watching video online, then 2020 was kind of that second wave, because guess what? When you're at home and you can't leave your house and you're in lockdown, what do? Well, you sit down and you watch YouTube, and many folks actually learn a skill, or they tune in and they watch you make music and learn how to make music on their iPad in Cubases. So that was a pretty cool thing. So we won't jump on that one, but your more recent videos that I've been watching, so you're a Cubases user primarily in terms of some of the videos that you do. You also use Cubase, and I think you just upgraded your Cubase on your desktop as well recently, if I'm not mistaken. So what is that balance? How do you balance out between desktop and mobile? And if you had a Sophie's choice on this, would you throw away your desktop or would you throw away your iPad?
Oh, wow. Now that's a really interesting question, because the only reason I got into iPad music was because we had me and my partner, we had a second child, and he was a very, very demanding youngster. He turned out to be autistic, and the way that our lives work is my missus works in the day, and I work in the evening and at weekend. Yeah. So that one of us is always there for the kids. Mm-hmm. Now, because Freddie was such a demanding child, I really struggled to find time to get into my studio to do any recording. And so I got an iPad, which actually originally the intention was so that I would be able to communicate with people to book gigs, and so I'd be able to make posters and get them online and things like that for my live work. But, I've got this iPad Air 1, and I'm like, I wonder what it can do, So then I started exploring music apps, but I had a great desktop setup at the time, but I wasn't able to use it. So I got into the iPad thing, which was at the time, and we're talking a few years ago now, so it was frustrating at the time. It was limiting. It could make some great sounds, but completing something was difficult then. Yeah. So I was always just really frustrated that I couldn't get to my desktop setup. But then things improved. The apps improved. I got a new iPad. I got a 6th gen basic iPad. That was a lot better. And I was completing songs on it, and I couldn't get to my desktop. And then when Freddie was a bit older and he went into education, then my desktop died. Oh. Right? It just died. Right? So I didn't have a desktop anymore. So I pursued the iPad thing and got really deeply into that. Now I do have a desktop set up again, and I've got fabulous software on there, and I love using it. But the thing is my life is I'm all over the place. Now I can always continue my productions on my iPad. The desktop I can only use when I'm in here. Yep. And so for that reason, if I had to choose between the two, I would keep the iPad Pro 11 that I now have. And I'd ditch the desktop.
There you go. Exclusive. You heard it here first, folks. Jamie Mallender would throw the desktop and keep the iPad. And look, I asked that question because I don't know what I would say to that. The weird thing is that despite the fact that my channel is built around GarageBand and iPads and iPhones and mobile creating, all this stuff that I do on a desktop because this is more convenient when I'm sitting in this room to have a couple of screens up and have a webcam and everything going on. So there's not much that you can't do music creative wise, but when it comes to video and YouTube and live stream and even just jumping into, you'd know this, jumping into the YouTube studio and setting up your tags and doing your thumbnails and doing your descriptions, you can do it all on the iPad and the iPhone, but it can be a pain in the ass sometimes to do it on iOS.
It can.
So just having a mouse and a keyboard and a screen in front of you can actually help out. So yeah, I would be torn. I would probably have to. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know what my answer would be. That's right. We're not here to talk about me, so I can dodge the question and avoid it. Speaking of questions, if you do have questions for Jamie, feel free to throw those here in the chat if you're here live. If you're watching on the replay, you can drop those down in the comments because I'm sure Jamie and myself will both be down in the comments after the show. Jamie's got all the rest of the day. I'll be going to bed, but I'll get up in the morning. So if you leave a comment, I might be a few hours before I answer it. But Jamie will be, as you've just mentioned, you'll be around. You can take your iPad with you and you'll be around the place. And you'll be able to respond to comments throughout the day, which would be cool. Let's say good day to other folks. So we've got XXWIIXX, use Logic Pro as well, and create on both. I don't think a lot of people do create on both platforms as well. There is a good crossover, and in fact, this is a good segue because in a video that I watched of yours today, Jamie, where you were talking about, and we've buried the lead here, we've been chatting for 20 minutes and we haven't even talked about the fact that you have just created your own classic rock sample pack, which you've created for the Mobile Music Pro channel. And I was actually watching this today. You can see, look, I've even got my red line there. If you can prove that I've watched it. So I was watching this today, and you were talking about the fact that when you create on Cubase's, now that you're using Cubase, that ability to move between the two platforms has improved significantly as well. Is that something that you're finding you're doing more of, that you're creating in Cubase's or creating on mobile, and then you're able to quickly just throw that across to your desktop and continue that creation process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I really enjoy the process on iPad and on desktop, when I'm in here, when I've got time to create in here, I'm getting better and better at knowing what works best on iPad, what works best on desktop. But a lot of the time, I've started something out on iPad because I can do that anywhere. So a lot of my projects begin on iPad. But, you know, I've got some great software on the desktop that there isn't an equivalent for on iPad, like the Native Instruments stuff.
Yes.
Right? Very sadly, there's nothing for Native Instruments stuff on iPad. I've got some great sounds, you know, that I want to use. So the fact that it's now so easy to shift a project from Cubase's 3 over to my desktop, open it up in Cubase, it takes like 2 minutes to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then the whole thing is set up in there, and I just can continue there. If I want to send it back to the iPad, that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But it can be done. You just got to be careful about what you use, you know?
Yeah.
So like if I use a Native Instruments plugin, I don't have that on the iPad, so that would have to be turned to Real Audio. Then it can come back to the iPad, and I can continue.
Yeah.
So,
yep. No, it's very, very cool, and I think a lot of people miss that point. And you're right; it's definitely easier going from mobile to desktop back to mobile, like you say, because there's different plugins and the desktop versions of apps, whether it's GarageBand or Cubase's, you usually have more features or different features at least. So some of those features may not be supported. So you may have to come back with audio, which I think you've done in the past as well. But yeah, a lot of the stuff you were talking about in the video, again, that if folks go over to your channel now that everyone here is subscribed to your channel, mate, they can go over and watch that video and see how you created this sample pack, which is this one here. And why don't you talk us through this, because this is pretty gosh darn exciting that this is a sample pack available that folks can go and check out. They can buy this now, and it's like 2+ gigabytes of samples, and it's all your bass and guitar and drums, and it looks amazing, mate. What can folks expect if they go check this out?
Okay, so I had never ever thought about making a sample pack. It's not something that's in my, you know, I mean, I don't use sample packs. I play stuff, you know, and my creation for me comes from the ground up. I create everything. It never occurred to me to use one or to make one. But Vortex from Mobile Music Pro contacted me, and he wanted me to make a pack of classic rock guitar and bass sounds. And initially that was what he was asking for, was just guitar and bass. And he said, make like sort of 10 tracks, if you like, different tempos, different kinds of classic rock vibes, do the guitar, do the bass. And so I started working on it, but I found I needed some drums. Right? So I made some drums so that I could send him little demos of what I was doing, because I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I wanted to know if he approved of what I was doing. So I'd make these little demos, so they had drums in. And he really liked the drums. He wanted to know where the drum sounds came from, and I said, well, the samples I've collected over the years, and then I've treated them myself and worked on them, and so I kind of. So then he asked me if I could include the drums as well, and then he said, "Can you make some more drum kits so we can offer more drum kits?" And then I came up with this idea of, instead of just offering the guitar parts run through an amp with reverb on, what about if I also include the clean guitar sounds, the clean bass sounds, the presets that I've used? So let's say if somebody gets this pack and they dig a bass part that I played, and they've got Black Ice Beta Gamma by Nambrini, whether they're using it on desktop or on iOS, there's a preset, identical preset for both. So you can take the audio, open up the app, and you put my preset in, and then you can adjust it to suit your track. So you've got presets for all the software that I used. You've got all the drums. There's, for each track, there's a whole bunch of different guitar parts and bass parts. And then he also asked me to make a MIDI version of every guitar part and every bass part.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Which, when he asked me to do that, I thought, oh, God, that's going to take me ages. But actually it didn't.
Okay.
I was really surprised, actually. At first, it was taking me ages, but then I really quickly got into the flow of that, and I got that done.
How did you do that, mate? So I have to pause on that, because did you use some sort of audio to MIDI converter or sampler to take your audio tracks and turn them to MIDI, or did you have to sort of hand code the MIDI from your audio files?
No, I just picked up the guitar and tried to remember what I played, and worked out what I played, and then I played it in on the keyboards, like played it in live, and then I just went in, and because I'm not a great keyboard player, I'm not marvelous, so I went in and quantized and timed and everything, because I know that Vortex likes MIDI to be bang on the line, and so I did that way, because he's paying for it. It's his pack. He's paying me to do it, Then Vortex has loaded the drum samples and stuff into various different softwares, and he's provided like segments versions with the guitar parts in and stuff, so you can chop up my playing. There's a whole lot on offer in this pack.
It is very, very cool, and I don't even think I've even let you know this, mate, but I did speak to Vortex over at Mobile Music Pro, and because he reached out to me, and I've taken a quick look at it today. So I thought I needed to come into this at least being able to see and hear what it's like, and it is awesome, because even if you're thinking this, oh look, I'm not a mobile creator, I'm not a Cubasis user, I don't know anything about this. All the WAV files are in there. So all the WAV files are in there. They're all beautifully labeled and named with the BPM, so that you can just drag these into anything. If you're using GarageBand on your iPad, if you're using a Mac, if you're using a PC, if you're using BandLab on a browser, whatever you're using, you can import these as WAV files. So even if you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the presets and all of the options that Jamie's put into this pack, just use the tracks. And the one thing that I hear more from people in this community and in many creative communities is, I don't play guitar and I don't play bass. videos, and I struggle to find really good real guitar sounds and real rock guitar sounds and real sort of grungy, gritty, distorted guitar sounds to put in my tracks. Well, guess what? Jamie has just solved your problem. So if that all sounds pretty darn cool, I think it's on sale. Yeah, look at that, 11 days, $14.99. Otherwise, it'll drop back up to $29.99. So dive in and jump in on that. Like, this wasn't deliberately. I didn't even mention this to Jamie beforehand. This wasn't going to be a let's pump up the pack that Jamie's worked on. But I think it's something that's so cool. It's something I've never done, and I wanted to sort of hear the behind the scenes of how that actually comes about. And yeah, I think you can hear from that if you think of all of the samples that are in there, all of the MIDI files that Jamie's had to hand code and create out of his playing, that's hours. That's probably hundreds of hours of work that Jamie's put in there, and you can have it all for $15. So sound like should give a set of steak knives too. I'm like a TV shopping network. So we'll move on before I go off on too many tangents there. But let's talk about YouTube. Because why you got into YouTube to start with, we've already sort of covered. But how do you decide what to do? So what's sort of your basic, what's a week like in the world of Jamie Mallender and Jamie TV in terms of what you create? Is it all just like, finger in the air, we'll just do that this week? Or do you have a plan around it? How do you come up with your video ideas and work out what you're doing day to day?
Well, now... that's changing now.
Ooh,
remember when we did the roundtable a couple of weeks ago with Jade and with Vortex?
Yep.
Right. And I was talking about this, and it's changing. I have a book actually. Where is it? Oh, it's not to hand. But I have a book, and I write things down.
Oh,
right. Because basically, what happened was through lockdown, I had quite a lot of time, and what I did, when I started out, I was buying apps because I was nobody, and I was buying the apps, learning how to use them, and making videos with them, finding my way on YouTube, and making videos that weren't particularly well paced or well edited or anything, but learning. And quite quickly, I got developers sending me software, and I'd like to say actually that the ones that were initially very supportive, who reached out to me and said, "Seen your videos, would you like to try our software?" and kind of had some faith and took a chance on me. Yeah, there we are. There was Bliss, Blue Mango, and Umbrini. Very early on, just reached out and sent me codes because I wasn't earning during lockdown. There was no work. So that was a real big help. And so then when that happens, gradually more and more developers start sending you codes. So all I was doing, I've got loads of time, so I'm not really planning. I get a code, I look at the app, I'll make a video on this, and I'm not really kind of like worried about the time that any of this is taking. But then I realized just recently that I'm not really making any music, because I'm busy making videos, and that was never really the point. I should still be making my own music. And also, I don't really want to do just the sort of constantly just app after app thing anymore. Yeah. So I need to tie those things back in together. So what I'm doing is, Vortex asked me to do this sample pack, and I really enjoyed it. I'd never thought about doing it before. So what I'm doing now is, now that I've done that, I can't stop making samples. I'm really enjoying this. I'm doing a whole bunch of samples at the moment for my for people signed up to my Patreon account. Yesterday, I just started uploading the first track, and I'm providing a whole lot of content there at my Patreon account. And so what I'm wanting to do now, as I move forward, is to tie in making sample packs and also making music and teaching people how to make music. So I will feature apps. I will still make videos that are just about apps. Sometimes I'll stream about one app. But that needs to be tied in now with making music, releasing music, and making these sample packs. Because it just feels like more of a journey. And I feel like I need to be releasing some stuff again. So
Very cool. Well, that's really good to hear because, and look, I've linked down in here in the chat here, and I'll put them in the descriptions after the show as well to both Jamie's Patreon, but also that round table, because I remember chatting about that, and it was weird because I'd had a very similar sort of epiphany about 6 months ago, and in that chat, Jamie was basically saying what I was saying to other people 6 months ago, which is that, like, I feel like I'm just doing the same thing, like it's Groundhog Day, it's same stuff, different day, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. And for me, it was GarageBand tutorials, which I still want to do and I still love doing. And I don't want to sound like I'm, disrespecting all the people that have been watching those tutorials for so many years. But at some point you go, hang on, I'm not actually making any of my own music anymore. And I'm not actually learning anything new, and I'm not growing and developing myself. So, yeah, I know when you said that, and I think I said to you at the time, like, it's hard because, again, all those folks that you mentioned before, all those great developers that were so good to you, you don't want to sort of turn around and thumb your nose and go, well, you can give me a free app, but I'm not reviewing them anymore. But at the same time, and I think I said this to you on the show, I'm like, if you just say yes, 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 and you got no way of fulfilling all that, and you have a nervous breakdown in the meantime, and you can't do anything, well, you're no help to anyone, are you? So
No.
finding that ability to know when to say yes, when it's a good opportunity, when it's something new, when it's something that's going to fulfill you, and when sometimes you have to politely say, your new app looks amazing, and I'm going to leave it for someone else to review.
yeah, yeah. In my book, I have possible videos, right?
Nice.
Possible
Yeah.
live streams, what apps will be incorporated, and how they will tie in to me making a track, to me making a sample pack, and then I'm trying to get some order of that and schedule things. It's been a little bit tricky last couple of weeks because we were on holiday and the kids are still off school. So in the daytime at the moment, I've got little time. But next week, I'll be back on it. Actually, the missus has taken a little bit of time out of work to have our youngest so that I can do this interview. So
I was about to say, mate, every time you mention that you're supposed to be looking after your kids during the day, I'm like, and I pulled you out here in the middle of the day to chat to you here now. But I do appreciate you for shuffling things around for us here, because I know it's hard to find the times to do these things with us. So I know that when we did the round table, we had myself and Jade here in Australia, we had Vortex in the US and you in the UK, and we're juggling around times, and we've eventually found a time that worked for everyone, and it happened to be your evening. And I think I said to you at the time, I'm like, oh, sorry to keep you up so late. And you're like, mate, this is my work time. This is when I'm doing
Yeah.
this stuff anyway. So thank you. I do appreciate you. It's I mean, we're only we're still got another 25 minutes to chat, mate. And I know that this is probably fascinating for folks who are thinking of doing what you do, because that's what the Creator Town Hall is all about. I want to get folks on here to chat about what inspires you, how you've actually made your way in this, and even some of maybe the challenges that you've had along the way. So I'm going to ask that. I don't even have it on my list here, but I'm just going to say, what do you think is both the most rewarding thing about being a YouTube creator and maybe the most challenging thing about it?
Ooh. Okay. Well, the most rewarding thing, I think, is not when you get a video that gets a surprisingly large amount of views, or loads of thumbs up or anything. I think it's more like when somebody comments on a video and they're saying thank you. You really helped me with this issue, or you helped me decide what to buy. I got a message, a private message the other day from a gentleman who just wanted to say how much my videos had helped him, and how much he liked the way I present things, and what it means to him. That's the most rewarding thing.
Love it.
I mean, I'd love to say it's the money, but it's not.
Yeah, for those watching at home, don't get into music for the money. It's going to be a very long, hard uphill slog because, look, I'm not saying that to be discouraging, but yeah, YouTube, I've always said that getting into music and being a musician and trying to make money doing it, and then going YouTube and music, it's like taking two of the most challenging ways to make a living and crushing them together, and then trying to make a living out of that. So, yeah, you got to love it first. You got to love it first, and then you can still do it, but make sure that you love the music and that you're not doing it for them, doing it for that. What about the challenges, mate? What have you found over because it's about 2 years since the inconvenience? What's challenged you the most in the last couple of years?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge for me is most definitely, um, I've had the privilege to be part of some really big bands, and be very successful in that arena. Um, and so what has been challenging for me is that with YouTube, once I actually decided, a couple of years ago, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work on this, being, well, having very, very small numbers. And, so I made the decision, right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create good content. And I knew at first that my content wouldn't be marvelous. I knew that it would take some time and I'd have to learn a lot. I had to learn a lot of new things. So I thought, right, I'm just going to keep putting the videos out. I'm going to keep trying to get better. I'm not going to worry about the numbers or compare myself to anyone else. I'm just going to be the best that I can be. And then, of course, you get gradually better and better, and you do notice that other channels are doing well and your numbers are small, and you can't help but look at that and ask yourself why. So I think the biggest challenge for me has been just keeping focused on that, making the content as good as I possibly can.
Yep.
And not trying to have a viral video. I've seen a lot of people do this thing where they will have a huge video where they've obviously thought about it very carefully, and they've thought, it's time for me to become a big YouTube thing. I'm going to have a viral video, and they've thought about it, and they've got a clickbait title and a clickbait thumbnail and some content that's a little bit edgy, and they've gone for it. And the thing is I've seen quite a few people. A good friend actually of mine did exactly that, and his channel was really small, and he had a massive video, like millions of views on this video, but didn't do him any good because he didn't have any more content on his channel that was any good to back that up. And now his channel is nowhere, because when you get massive numbers like that and they suddenly fall, the algorithm kills you. So I don't ever want to do the viral video thing. I want it to grow slow and steady, and the slower and steadier that it grows, actually the more time I get to become friends with and get to know the people who are watching, and the community grows. So
I'm really glad you said that, and it's a good message, because I get a lot of emails about and messages about music and about how to create music, but obviously people look at my channel and they're just like, how did you, like, in 6 years, how did you go from 0 to 100,000 subscribers? And I'm like, very slowly. There was no big, it wasn't like the big sort of classic hockey stick growth where I was just like nothing and then boom, a video and then up there. It was, if you look at my graphs, they do that, and they're worms. They go up and down, and you have the peaks and the troughs, but overall it's like anything, you just want to continue growing it. And I think you're spot on there, that a lot of people chase that. They think, oh, as soon as I make it, as soon as I get that one video, that one viral video, and get that big group of subscribers, well, guess what? Unless that video is indicative of all the other videos on your channel, people are going to subscribe to you and then not watch a single one of your other videos. And that's actually significantly worse. If you've got 2,000 subscribers, I mean, I have this problem now because I've got a lot of people that subscribe to my channel way back when that now don't watch me because they've either outgrown me or because they've moved on to other things. That's a challenge, because I have videos that I put out and I get 1,000 views, and people are like, how do you get 1,000 views? You got 100,000 subscribers. Why do people hate you? And it's not actually about that. It's just about that moving on. And it's more about, as you said before, it's more about the engagement you get from people. It's more about those comments you get, and it's more about the people you're helping on a daily basis, and creating that I look at it like a library. And we'll come back to the fact that your channel's called Jamie TV. So I say all that to say the fact that, did you start out saying, I'm going to make Jamie TV because this is going to be like my TV channel where I'm going to put out a different sort of variety concept, or where did the concept of Jamie TV come from, mate?
Okay, well, it wasn't called Jamie TV. It was just called Jamie Mallender. I decided to call it Jamie TV a couple of years ago at the beginning of lockdown. I changed the name when I decided to take YouTube more seriously, and actually, the reason I called it that was because I never wanted to have a channel that was iOS music or guitars and guitar pedals. I wanted it to be whatever it is that I'm doing musically in my career. My career as a failed rock star is I wanted to make content surrounding what I am doing. So I might make a video that's about a live performance. It might be backstage with talking with one of the bands that I'm in. It could be anything surrounding what I do. That was the idea. Of course, because of lockdown, it's largely been software and studio and iOS and,
Yeah.
But that's not to say that over time it won't change and grow and incorporate more things.
Got it. No, and look, it is the ultimate challenge, isn't it? It's the generalize versus niche down. And I think you've probably watched a lot of the same YouTube content that I have, because you have to learn this caper and you have to find out what works and what doesn't. And I had Patrick from GarageBand Guide on the show a couple of weeks back, and he's got this challenge at the moment because he's the GarageBand Guide, and what people are expecting from him is GarageBand tutorials. So for him, it is challenging to go out and generalize and do something outside of GarageBand, even though he's a very talented guy that knows a lot of stuff outside of GarageBand. So, whereas the other side is, if it was just Jamie's Variety Hour and you were showing how to cook a 3-egg omelette one week and then showing how to rock out in a bass guitar the next, you're probably going to segment your audience way too far and then not have that same problem we had before. You might have 50,000 subscribers, but 2,000 are there for the omelette cooking and 2,000 are there for your walks by the river that you like to vlog. I think that can be a challenge as well, as finding that balance between what you do. But it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. If you're just joining us here, by the way, live, we are talking with Jamie Mallender. You can go and subscribe to his channel and follow him and all the things he does down in the description. Got a couple more topics to chat about here. And before we don't get to it, I asked Jamie beforehand, I'm like, anything you want to chat about, mate? I've got a few ideas and I threw them in here. And one thing that you threw back at me is music and AI. And I'm assuming this is artificial intelligence and music. And you said I got something to say about this. So I'm just going to throw it straight over to you, because I don't really have any views on this. I've chatted with it briefly with a couple of people, but what's your thoughts on this, and what did you want to sort of share or discuss or create some controversy around?
Well, no, I mean, all it is, right, the roundtable that we were on with Vortex, right? I was watching I've watched all the episodes that he did prior to the one that we did.
Yep.
And with great interest, because from the start he told me he was going to get me on it at some point. And so I was watching, and in one of the episodes they were talking about this, and I thought, I really wish I was on this show, because I would like to talk about this, right? Because I ever thought about it. And the thing is that software and computers have been a big part of music production now for a long time, but it keeps getting cleverer and cleverer.
Yes.
Right. Like, I'm a big sci-fi buff, and the most common, or one of the most common themes in any sci-fi show is artificial intelligence, and when it gets too clever and it takes over, right? Yep. Okay. Now, a lot of old musicians like myself are terrified of AI in music, or they might not like to admit it, but they are terrified of it because because of, like Vortex mentioned, that maybe at some point the AI will not just be creating drum beats for us and composing little bits and pieces for us. Maybe it will do the whole composition. Maybe a computer will at some point be able to compose a whole piece of music and will not be needed. All right, and that's terrifying to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But my take on that is that no matter how clever computers get, software will only ever be able to produce numbers, as it were, right? The soul comes from the human content. So even when you look at like electronic dance music, that's not got any sort of what I might call real instruments on them. It's the human involvement in that makes it speak to you in some way.
Yeah.
Right? So my opinion on this artificial intelligence in music thing is that what will happen is that there's no doubt that at some point computers will create music. They'll create whole pieces of music, but it won't mean anything. It won't have any expression. And so, finally, at that point, people will realize that what was missing all along was the human content. Because, I mean, at the moment, it's not just that. I mean, people are auto-tuning the life out of things and time correcting everything spot on the line, which is totally not necessary and actually kills a lot of music for me.
Kill the
right
groove,
now,
yeah.
right? So people will realize at that point that the human quality was what was special all along, and this will create a kind of a revolution of musicians creating music that is just 100% humans playing instruments slightly out of time and slightly out of tune here and there, and people will realize that was what was better all along.
I love
Right?
it. Oh, that is cool. I wanted to hear that whole monologue, so I didn't want to interrupt you on that because, yeah, I love it, and it's amazing because I've had this conversation with people before because, like you say, people that are in old school people, and I'm in my 40s. You've said you just turned 50. Like we've been around since before computers were used, since you recorded on tape, and I always say that. The reason that I'm not scared about the future of music and AI, and it's like, oh no, we're all being replaced, is that there used to be something called a tape op. There used to be a tape operator. There was a job in the studio that was just the bloke that wound on the tape, and he knew all about the tape, and he knew the tape speeds, and he'd clean the tape machine, and he'd set up all the tape, and he'd record. That job doesn't exist anymore. Does that mean that a really talented tape op is not still working in the music industry? No. The good ones adapted and they worked out that, hey, I'm actually needed because these people running these giant studios running Pro Tools, well, as long as I can transfer those skills across. And I think it's the same with this sort of thing, is that nothing is going to replace, like you say, the ability for someone to have judgment and the ability for someone to have that human touch on things that is going to actually make a difference. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're both wrong, mate. Maybe in 20 years' time we'll be sitting back here just going, oh, what will I program? I'll just press a button and it'll play music that's pleasing to Pete by robot number 432. Who knows? Could be the case. All righty. What do you folks think? If you're watching here live, I'd love to get your views. We might finish with that. If you've got any theories, would you listen to music by AI? Would you are you concerned or scared by the fact that maybe in the future, because I don't play. We just mentioned we don't play keyboards very well. You know who does play keyboards really well? A MIDI controller that you program and say play this C note at exactly this time. But again, if you hear a really great piano player or a really great guitarist, it's not the fact that they hit all the right notes at the right time. It's the soul, it's the feel, it's the groove, it's the sitting in the pocket and playing along that I think does it anyway. And I think many folks probably agree with that as well. Let's talk guitars, mate, because we've only got 7-ish minutes left. You have a fairly vast selection of guitars based on what I've seen in your backgrounds of your videos and what you play and what you like to play around with. How important are guitars to you? And if someone's starting out on guitar, like what do they need to do? Do you need to get like 10 guitars and be able to play a burning guitar with your teeth, or where did you start with all this guitar? Would you call yourself a guitar addict?
Yeah. I love things with strings. I have far too many of them, and fortunately my missus doesn't come in the studio, so she doesn't actually know how many I have. But yeah, I'm completely addicted to anything with strings. If someone was starting out with guitar, I would say don't worry about getting an expensive guitar. Get a little bit of advice, get something that's nicely playable. Get a little bit of advice so that you don't buy yourself a cheese grater or, something that's going to be so bad that no matter how good you get, it's going to make you sound terrible, because that's just really off-putting. But you
Nothing
don't
from
need an
50 quid down
expensive
at
one.
Cashies? No.
Well, you don't need a big name guitar, and in fact, really nowadays, professionals don't need big name guitars. I had some guitars with big names on, and then I worked in a music shop about 13 years ago. I had to take a year off touring. I had to take a year off the road because my missus was very ill. And so I worked in a music shop for a year. And having sort of the chance to play lots of guitars, because like when you work in a music shop, Saturday is mental. You don't have a minute, but the rest of the week you're dusting guitars and doing displays.
Yeah.
And so I'd play a lot of guitars, tried a lot of things. And what I found was that a lot of the guitars that are considered budget guitars or mid-price guitars are as good as or better than, in many cases, the big name guitars. People think that, when they're starting out, they think that they need a Fender or they need a Gibson. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Fender or Gibson, of course not. But you don't need one. I mean, I've got this endorsement deal with Vintage, and they cost about a sixth of the price. And I mean, my Les Paul copy made by Vintage is called the Les Paul Killer, because I've taken it to jams and people have played it and they're like, why is this better than my Gibson? What have you done to it? I've not done it. That's a stock model, and so I actually got rid of all my really expensive guitars, and with the money that I got from selling them, it meant that I could buy lots more guitars. And because Vintage are cheaper, I have a whole lot of them, which pleases me.
That it's so true, and I think it's the same with a lot of music gear. I think I always equate it to wine. So for wine connoisseurs, the difference between a $3 bottle of wine and a $20 bottle of wine is pretty obvious. Like, you're going to be able to tell the difference there. But a $20 to a $100, it takes a very discerning person, and sometimes that $100 bottle, you're paying for the label, you're paying for the winemaker. It's probably the same, if not sometimes a bit worse than the $20. So I think it's the same with gear. And again, like wine, why not buy 3 bottles of different wine, and then you can have a rosé, and then you can have a Cab Sav, and then you can have a Sauv Blanc. So it's the same with guitars and even microphones, and with anything else that you can use in your studio. Like people that are going out and buying like the Shure SM7Bs. Like I know it's the big microphone that everyone uses and everyone looks cool, and it's hey, I got a $400 microphone in my studio because it looks great and everyone else is using it. But I don't own one. Like I own like a couple, like a Shure SM57, an AKG D5, an Audio-Technica AT2020. I've got about $400 worth of microphones, but I've got 5 different choices. I could actually throw up a different microphone and get a different tone, a different sound. And it's the same with a guitar in my view. I'm the same. I only own 5 guitars at the moment, and none of them are worth more than about $600-700. So they're all, and a couple of them are the $100 cash converter spec. My bass guitar, you would probably shudder to see it, but it does the job. It sounds cool. It's a nice sounding bass, and I'm like, I paid $100 at a secondhand store. So yeah, you use what you got. And who was it here? Crap guitars make you work harder. Well, yeah, there is that too, but you also don't want to start with something so crap that you're fighting it to get a good tone out of it. You want something just above crap, I think.
Definitely. Slightly inferior to crap.
Yes, that's right. Crap plus 1, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
We've got some comments about our AI. Agree that human creativity is key. Yeah, definitely needs a bit of that human touch. And again, like everything, all the people worried about everything being automated. It's like, yeah, but there still has to be a human touch in there, and that's what the community is going to be about. That's going to take us forward into the future. Gibrain says, and your guess, I too am a failed rock star, just more failed. There you go. They've got a competition about who's a more failed rock star. Gregory O'Sullivan, who I know is using, he uses a lot of sort of voice synthesizers now in his songs, which actually sound really cool in the right song. So, but again, guess what, Gregory? They don't go in your tracks by themselves yet. So you've still got to find those samples. You've still got to program those AIs to say, play this note at this time. So it's the same thing. And Sion, he for one hails our robot overlords. So yes, we will be we will be bowing down to them in the future. Mate, we had other things to talk about here on the list, but I did warn you in the pre-show that an hour just flies by like that, and we never get to all of the topics here, but it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and it's been long overdue. And I know we were going to talk more about YouTube in particular, so maybe you need to come back for another chat, and maybe we need to do more of a deep dive into the actual YouTube side of things and some advice for that. I'd say I'd give you advice, but again, it changes every week, month, and year, mate. So the advice I have is probably a year old anyway. So if I told you what to do with your YouTube channel, it's from a year ago when I last worked out what I was going to do. But if anyone's got any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comments below. Where are the places that folks can go to find you and what you do online?
Okay. Well, I have a website which has links to everything.
Nice.
But it is a very old-fashioned, out-of-date website that really needs updating. But that's www.jamiemallender.co.uk.
Nice.
But if you just go to Google and type in Jamie Mallender, you will find me.
That's it. You do have a very distinctive name, and remember it's Mallendeer. Don't spell it wrong like I did 4 times on the thumbnail before I sent it to Jamie. So, but yeah, and look, I'll embarrass Jamie by showing. There you go. That's not bad, mate. That's probably better looking than my website. Though you got all the information there. It's all good.
The problem with it is that it doesn't look good on a mobile.
The mobile optimizing. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Absolutely. The other thing is when we didn't even touch on your music, mate. We talked about creating and we talked about so many other topics, but obviously you do make your own music, and if folks want to check that out, they can do that. There's the Song Whip link. Jade threw it in the chat before, and I'll pop it down in the description. So songwhip.com/Jamie Mallender, and that way, regardless of what platform you listen on, you can actually jump in there and check out Jamie's music as well. And of course, go over to the YouTube channel where you can join 2,000 plus other folks who watch your videos and check out your content, which is pretty cool. Any final parting words for the wonderful community we have here, Jamie?
Just that my music is on all streaming services, but on Bandcamp, there's a couple of tracks that are not available anywhere else yet.
Nice. So bandcamp.com, I'm going to search it right now. Let's see how easy it is to find him. If I just go in here to Jamie Mallender, I'm going to do this live here. There you are, artist. I like the fact that you use the same profile picture everywhere, mate. It makes you really easy to find. As soon as I see that logo there, I know that we're in the right spot. So there you go. So it's some exclusive stuff over there at Bandcamp if you want to go and purchase and support Jamie with some of his music on the Bandcamp as well. Very cool. And Jade says the Bandcamp link is in the Song Whip link. Look at that. Even easier. You're right. Look at that. I didn't realize that Song Whip is so good, it even has Bandcamp down the bottom there now. So there you go. The Song Whip link will do it all for you and take you everywhere. Thank you, everyone who's been here tonight. Thank you to my guest, Jamie Mallender. Go and check out all the things he's doing on the interwebs. And until next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Don't piss your pants about. And we'll see you on the next Creator Town Hall. Cheers, Jamie. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Pete.